What was supposed to be just a recovery became the beginning of a forbidden secret that no one could ever know. Fear was never my partner. I chased adrenaline the way a dying man chases air. My body learned early to respond to this series of intensities. Time went by and suddenly I exploded. Not in a subtle way, but like a bolt of lightning in a clear summer sky. I woke up one day and my breasts no longer fit in the soft cotton of childhood. They were round, full, almost impertinent, as if challenging any gaze that dared to face them. My waist sinked like a violin string and my hips seemed to have learned to dance all on their own. Each step I took had an almost musical rhythm. It was as if gravity itself was forced to bend a little every time I passed. But what moved more than the body was the way I walked a walk that didn't ask for permission. A look that didn't implore for attention, but demanded it. I didn't need to say anything. It was as if I was carrying an invisible plaque that read, "You are not prepared for this. This is a story about what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. It's a story about a body in recovery and a desire that refused to rest." Before we dive into this intoxicating, dangerous game, I invite you to become a part of our community. If you enjoy stories that explore the very edge of human connection, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Your support allows us to keep telling these unforgettable true stories. I lived with my parents in one of those cozy, picture-perfect houses that always smells like cake, even when there's nothing in the oven. I was the only child doted on, loved, idolized. Every wish I had took shape with a simple, "Please, Dad," said with that practiced sweet look that I knew he was powerless to resist. It always worked. My routine was on the surface quiet. I was a student, so I studied half the time, but the rest of the time that was truly mine, was spent on the edge, rock climbing, trail running, downhill mountain biking. The riskier, the better. It was there in the heart of the risk that I felt alive, more than alive, indomitable, insatiable. But the higher we fly, the harder the fall. And my fall came on top of 4 stupid polyurethane wheels, a skateboard. I'd seen some videos online and thought, that seems easy enough. I was all about the aesthetics, of course. I borrowed a board from a friend's cousin, squeezed myself into a tight, ridiculously impractical outfit, tied my hair up in a high bun, and went to the local neighborhood square to show off. The first few minutes were a hilarious, humbling mix of me looking like an unbalanced flamingo and a deep, primal fear being glued to my spine. But I kept trying, pushing past the wobbles fueled by pure stubbornness until I saw the ramp. And I went for it. And for a glorious second, I was flying. Then, boom, fate, or maybe just physics, decided to slide out from under my feet. I fell a rotten, graceless sleeve of a fall. Hot asphalt met my skin. It was like being grated like a block of cheese. Knees, elbows, my pride, all of it was scraped raw. But what hurt the most, what truly brought my world to a screeching halt, was my foot. A dry, sickening sprain, as if someone had snapped a thick pencil inside my boot. The diagnosis, a fracture, the sentence, a cast up to my shin, a month of being grounded. 30 long days away from the world with no mountains, no trails, no risk, no release. It's just me, the sofa, and the suffocating longing for freedom. My vanity took a hit too. Trying to feel sexy with a clumsy, heavy cast on your leg is a cruel joke. But I, being me, found a way. I wore short shorts on one side, tight tops on the other. I showed what I still had to show. My parents, bless their hearts, almost freaked out. They treated me like a piece of delicate Chinese porcelain. And I, of course, took full advantage. Trays of food brought to my room, fresh squeezed juice, gentle caresses on my head. If I had to stay still, I was going to do it with luxury. But the true punishment was the boredom. My restless soul was trapped in a still healing body. I started talking to the ceiling fan, watching mind-numbing reality TV, counting the ants on the wall. I was going insane. Until he came, a private physical therapist recommended by a friend. Of my father's, I swear I didn't give it much thought. I imagined a bald, middle-aged man with thick glasses, beige pants, and a stack of pamphlets on proper stretching techniques. I was already preparing my most bored, dismissive face. But when the doorbell rang and I hobbled over to open it, it was as if time had paused just for me to see him right. He was something else entirely. This was a man, not a boy, not a guy. A man made formed. Gray hair just starting to dust the temples of his well-kept beard, a tall, athletic body that spoke of quiet. Consistent self-care. He wore a simple, well-fitting polo shirt and dark jeans. No beige pants in sight. He smelled of sandalwood, a warm, woody perfume that arrived before he did. His voice when he introduced himself was low firm, the kind of voice you feel on your skin, and his eyes. He had the kind of eyes that perform a full X-ray of your soul, but somehow managed to do it with kindness. He greeted me with a subtle, professional smile and eyes that appraised without being indecent. "Hello," he said, his voice a calm baritone. "I'm Raphael. Raphael." The name echoed in my head. On that first day, he just evaluated my foot. His touches were soft, clinical, his fingers firm, his manner completely safe and professional. But each touch, each gentle manipulation of my ankle was a spark that I had to pretend not to notice. But my body, my body noticed it, answered. He was so quiet, so technical, but there was a tension hovering in the air between us that was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And that's where it all started. 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at the exact same time. My entire routine, my entire world started spinning around him. I began to prepare for his visits with the focus of a general preparing for battle. The clothes were chosen by hand, a top that outlined every curve, shorts that marked the line of my hips. Was it physical therapy or a fashion parade? I didn't know. Any more in the first official session, still half sleepy, I dragged my casted foot into the living room. And when I saw him standing there in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, dark jeans fitting him perfectly, his sandalwood scent invading everything, I almost forgot the pain in my foot. I lay on the couch as he directed. He started the stretches, his hand moving with expert precision up from my ankle to my calf and my shorts. My very short shorts started going up together with his hand until a puff of air. And I realized the fatal, careless mistake I had made. In my haste, that morning, I was without panties. With nothing. Free light and completely, utterly exposed, my heart stopped. My blood ran cold. But he continued. His face showed no visible reaction but his breath. His breath changed. It hitched for just a microsecond. His eyes, too, they flickered. Just once. And they're on that couch under his firm professional hands. What was supposed to be just treatment became tension. Dense, hot, irresistible. My body reacted on its own. Every touch. Every gentle adjustment. It was as if he were deciphering a series of secret codes that I didn't even know I possessed. It was as if my body was speaking a language that only he understood. And he understood perfectly. At the end of that session, he got up quickly, adjusted his shirt and pants, gave a tense, tight smile, and said, "See you in 2 days." I touched his hand as he was leaving a handshake that I held for a second. Too long, firm, slow, intentional. And in that moment, I knew neither of us was innocent anymore. The physical therapy had begun. But the recovery, that was going to go far beyond my foot. After that first charged meeting with Raphael, my body couldn't relax anymore. Neither at night nor during the day. I would close my eyes and feel his hand again, rising up my legs, sliding. As if he were drawing my outline from memory. My skin remembered each touch, each calculated pause, each adjustment that felt far too innocent to be just professional. And worse, I wanted more. The following days, I began to prepare the battlefield. That's what it was now. A game, a silent war of tension and wills. I chose my next outfit with military precision. A pair of black high-waisted leggings that hugged each centimeter of my legs like a second skin. They were discreet but indecent in their detail because they revealed without showing, drew the eye without delivering the prize. It was like a whisper before a scream. I looked at myself in the mirror, stood there for a long time, supporting my good leg on the floor, turning my hip, adjusting the fit of my tight tank top with the flimsy excuse that it was for comfort, but deep down, I knew. This was my battle uniform. On Thursday, he arrived on schedule, punctual, polite, impeccable. But he came with a different energy. His gaze was more contained, as if he were actively trying to lock his attention in an internal safe. He greeted me with that slight professional smile, but there was a second of silence that hung in the air for longer than was necessary. We started with the basic movements. I lay on my stomach, legs stretched out. He lowered himself to my side. His breath hit lightly against my hip, a warm, invisible touch. His hand went through the muscle of my calf, feeling for resistance, activating the circulation. But I could only feel heat, a heat that rose slowly, from the point of his touch spreading through my veins like a forbidden perfume. Until he asked me to turn over slowly. He said, his voice a low command. Let's work on the subsequent stretches. My heart stopped. I turned, and as I settled, on my back, I felt the impact of the stretched, thin fabric of my leggings. The material clung to my body like ink. My hip went up just a little, revealing the low, gentle curve of my back. And I knew he was watching. I could feel his gaze on me, a physical presence. I felt it slide, hesitate, and then return. I felt the pause in his touch. I heard the breath get trapped in his throat. I could feel the electric tension crackling in the air between us. And yet he kept going. Professional, technical, precise. But with fingers that seemed to have a conversation with my pores over every inch of my skin. It was as if my body was being read in braille, and every comma, every period of my outline responded. A soft involuntary sigh escaped my lips. He pretended not to hear it, but he heard it. At the end of that session, he moved away in a hurry, almost fleeing. He adjusted the collar of his shirt, grinned a tight, strained grin, and said, "Very good progress. You're evolving well." But his eyes, his dark, conflicted eyes, said something else entirely. They said he was fighting a war against a force much greater than him and me. I wasn't fighting at all. It's back and forth, this game of cat and mouse. It's about to reach its breaking point. The tension is becoming unbearable. If you are feeling it too, if you are on the edge of your seat, waiting to see what happens, next, please hit that like button. Let me know that you're with me on this wild ride. By Saturday evening, the day of the removal of the cast, I had prepared myself to be even calmer, even more deliberate. No more workout clothes. I chose a pair of jean shorts, medium waist, that left my thighs well marked and on full display. And a simple white tank top worn without a bra. Just a subtle reminder to the world and to him that there was still a hungry, vibrant body there waiting to feel, to provoke, to be noticed. He arrived, as always, with his discreet, intoxicating perfume and that cotton shirt that seemed to have been made to measure for his athletic frame. But his look was not hiding anything anymore. We started the session, and now without the cast, the weather in the room was different. So there was more freedom, more touch, more proximity. He crouched, supported his hands on my back firmly. He guided me, moved me, repositioned me with a security that made my skin shiver in silence. And that's when the moment came. The balance exercise that changed everything. "Stand up," he said, his voice a little hoarse. "Let's test the stability of the injured leg. Just lean on it and lift the other one, slowly." I obeyed. I positioned myself. I raised my good leg, and then I hesitated. I let my body fall to the side, and in a split second he was there. He held me by the waist, firm, precise. He pulled me back against him with a force that I did not expect, and we were glued together. My chest pressed against the hard wall of his chest, my breath meeting his. Our eyes crossed, and there was nothing between us besides the charged air. And the sound of our accelerated, synchronized pulses, I didn't think. I didn't calculate. I just acted. Kay turned in his arms and leaned my full weight on him, feeling the heat of his skin that seemed to burn right through his shirt. He hesitated, but for 1,000th of a second only. Soon his hand tightened on my waist with more strength. He brought me even closer. His eyes went down to my mouth and stayed there frozen in a state of raw, undisguised desire. It was no longer just physical therapy. It was no longer just care. It was hunger, a mutual hunger for the other. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, he looked like another man. He hugged me intensely, his beard scratching gently against my neck. A moan, a sound of fear and pleasure, almost mute, escaped me, and that's when I understood there was no turning back now. His hands climbed my back slowwise. They discovered every centimeter of me, like someone deciphering an old secret map. He touched me like someone reading an intimate letter with their fingertips, and I surrendered. Right there in the middle of my living room with the window half open and the morning light. Crossing the curtain, I let go. The world could be out there, but I only existed there in that moment with that man. He led me to the sofa like someone handling a priceless, fragile object. He laid me down calmly with a reverence, as if I were something sacred and forbidden at the same time. And it was in this wordless, intense ritual that we began to forget about the injured foot. The session became a confession. The breath became a soundtrack. The skin became an altar. And our hands no longer obeyed reason. He explored me with the precision of someone who studies anatomy and with the passion of someone who no longer wants to understand anything. It was as if every centimeter of my body was a musical score, and he was the maestro of my reaction. And I was pure music. When it was over, we looked at each other in a profound, heavy silence. Nothing was said, but everything was understood. The cast had come off. And with it, a part of my own contention, my own self-control had also broken away. The doctor did the final tests a few days later and smiled, satisfied. "Perfect," he said. "The foot is perfect. Zero instability." It was a shame he couldn't evaluate my heart, 'cause that organ was far from stable. Raphael didn't come anymore. The official sessions were over, but the memories, they were not. One day, while I was reorganizing the medicines in my bathroom cabinet, I found a small note folded at the bottom of the box of painkillers I no longer needed. The calligraphy was his. Elegant, firm. A curve as firm as his touch. I opened it with trembling hands. Friday, 8 o'clock at night. At the Crescent Moon gazebo, or that dress I liked. And maybe forget the clothes underneath. I smiled alone, a slow, secret smile. I closed my eyes, and I knew the story of my recovery could have ended there, but the desire to start over. The desire for a new kind of risk, a new kind of adrenaline. This one was just beginning. I spent the next few days in a state of heightened, nervous anticipation. The house felt both empty and full. Empty because his presence was gone, but full of the ghost of him, of the memory of what we had done on the living room sofa. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was a canvas onto which my mind painted vivid, recurring images of his touch. His taste. The look in his eyes just before he had kissed me. My parents were oblivious, of course. They were just happy to see me walking normally again, to see me getting back to my old self. "You seem so much more relaxed, honey," my mom said one afternoon. If only she knew. The relaxation she was seeing was the calm after a storm. It's a quiet hum of a body that had been thoroughly, exquisitely brought to life. I thought about not going. For a brief, rational moment, I considered the risks. It was my father's friend's recommendation. He was a professional. He was significantly older than me. Said all the makings of a disaster, a scandal that could unravel the cozy, perfect world my parents had built around me. But then I would remember the feeling of his hands on my skin, the absolute certainty in his touch, the way he had looked at me as if I were the only woman in the world. And the rational thoughts would evaporate, like mist in the morning sun. I was an adrenaline junkie after all, and this was the purest, most dangerous drug I had ever encountered. On Friday, a cloudy sky mirrored the storm in my own heart. I got ready with the focus of a religious ritual. I chose a light silk dress, the one he had seen me in on one of our last sessions, the one that slid over the body like wind. And just as he had requested, there was nothing underneath. Nothing between me and the possible. I waited. He arrived at the gazebo at precisely 8 o'clock, emerging from the evening shadows. Hadn't brought anything, no bag, no jacket. Just that intense, consuming look. I closed the distance between us, and at that moment we both knew. The physical therapy was well and truly over, but the treatment for our mutual desire, that was just beginning. The door had barely closed behind him, in my mind, and the silence already screamed everything that our mouths still had the courage not to say. Raphael looked at me as if he were searching for an excuse for what would come next. But there were no more excuses. No protocol, no limits, no resistance. "You're okay?" he asked, his voice, a low, rough whisper. "I'm fine," I answered. But the truth was, I was on the brink of a beautiful collapse, not of pain or trauma, but of pure, unadulterated desire. He approached slowly, each step echoing on the wooden planks of the gazebo, and deep inside my chest, He started, but then stopped. Our eyes met, and that was enough. There was no hurry. He came to me like someone crossing a deep, wide abyss, slowly, without knowing if he would be able to come back. And I received him as if I was already waiting for him on the other side. Our mouths met with a silent, desperate thirst. It was not a kiss from a movie. It was a kiss of raw urgency, of months of tension trapped in controlled touches, held breaths, and repressed skin. His hands climbed my back, going through my body with the firmness of someone who knows every millimeter, and yet is still surprised by the discovery. He took off my dress carefully, his movements full of irreverence that sent shivers down my spine as if to dispel a memory, and he found that underneath there was nothing. "My God," he whispered, his eyes wide open, going through my body as if he were seeing something forbidden, sacred, and absolutely inevitable all at once. I trembled, but not of fear. It was my body finally being completely and utterly released. He laid me down on a blanket. He had brought his movements slow, full of a deep respect. It was as if he knew that in this moment there was no longer a patient and a therapist. There were two bodies, two worlds, two dangers about to explode. His hands touched me as if they were memorizing each curve from my neck to my waist, from my waist to my hip. When he got between my legs, there was no hesitation. There was a pause, a sigh, a shiver, and then a silence that screamed. He invaded me with his fingers, slowly feeling each reaction like a musical note. I bowed. I got lost. I found myself, I sank into the cushions of the blanket and into my own moans. At each touch, at each movement, my body told a story that he read with his tongue, with his mouth, with his eyes, as if he were saying, "Decipher me before I disguise myself again." And he deciphered me. His clothes fell away right after, and what I saw made me hold my breath. He was a whole man, mature, strong, with muscles designed by effort, not by vanity. His skin was hot, his beard scratching my chin, his hips fitting into mine, as if the world had been created just for that perfect, singular moment. When he finally penetrated me, it was like a silent, devastating ray of light. I closed my eyes, opened my mouth, and let him occupy every space, body, mind, and soul, at each slow, deep touch. I felt that there was no turning back. He held me by my neck, by my hip, by my thighs, as if he were afraid I would evaporate in his arms. And I was no longer me. I was sweat-moaning flesh and blood. We moved like waves and rocks, like fire and gasoline, without guilt, without a name, without a break. Our bodies spoke for us what we would never dare to say out loud. When the apex arrived, it was like a summer storm. Hot, long, and deeply deserved. The world stopped. And then there was only the sound of our breathing, trying. To return to normal. We stayed there for hours, he lying next to me, looking at me as if he were seeing the sunset after days of a relentless storm. I think that was the last session, wasn't it? Said his voice a low, satisfied rumble. Officially, I replied, a slow smile spreading across my face. We smiled at each other, accomplices in a beautiful, dangerous secret that would never be told to anyone. The next week, the doctor gave me my final high five. Congratulations, he said. Perfect foot, zero instability. Oh, it's a shame he didn't evaluate my heart, because that one was far from stable. Raphael, my therapist, my secret, my lover, didn't come anymore. The sessions were over, but the memories, no. And our story, our real story, was only just beginning.